Stephen Miller, the deputy White House chief of staff, who appears to be more of a vessel for the reincarnated spirit of Joseph Goebbels himself, announced this week that local law enforcement officials in the state of Minnesota have been ordered to, quote, surrender to federal agents. Here is what Stephen Miller put on social media. Only federal officers are upholding the law. Local and state police have been ordered to stand down and surrender. Now, this came after a social media post from New York Post columnist Miranda Devine, who wrote that local cops have gone AWOL in the face of anti-ICE protests in the city. They went AWOL. Now, it's a New York Post reporter, so I don't know if she is on the ground in Minnesota and doesn't see any cops anywhere, or if she's just reporting from her, very liberal city and pretending to know what's going on in Minnesota. I don't know. I don't care. Because Stephen Miller, one, has no authority under the 10th Amendment of the United States Constitution to order local law enforcement to surrender. And two, and this is even far more important than that, Stephen Miller has no authority. Okay, it's not just that he doesn't have authority to order cops to surrender. He doesn't have authority. Stephen Miller is not a lawmaker. Stephen Miller is not an elected official. Stephen Miller is a staffer. He is a guy whose job is technically so insignificant that Donald Trump or even Susie Wiles could walk up to him right now and say, "You're fired," and then he's unemployed. That is how quickly Stephen Miller can be without a job. Yet here he is, thinking he himself is the president of the United States because, as Caroline Leavitt pointed out recently, everything runs through Stephen. Ordering police to surrender? Now, surrender can only happen if there is conflict, if there is a fight, if there is effectively a war. So Stephen Miller's statement here is not just a violation of the 10th Amendment by a guy who, again, has no authority over any single person in the United States at all. And it's important to remember that. But it's also an indication that they do believe they, the federal government, are at war with the state of Minnesota. Now, that is the terrifying implication of Stephen Miller's comment. And Miller, of course, has been all over the news recently saying the most horrific, awful things we've ever seen and heard. But let me point this out. Stephen Miller, out of every single person in the Trump administration, more so than any of them, needs to spend the rest of his life in prison. And I'm not talking about a U.S. prison. I'm not talking about a club fed like where they sink Ghislaine Maxwell. I am talking about in The Hague. I do not want Stephen Miller prosecuted here in the United States. That'll never happen, first of all. But second of all, even if it did, it's not going to do it justice. Stephen Miller, the architect of the grotesque human rights abuses taking place here on United States streets at the hands of these ICE federal agents, needs to be prosecuted in The Hague. He needs to be brought up on charges by the, God, the name escapes me at the moment, but basically the World Criminal Court at The Hague. That's what needs to happen. And he needs to be put in a maximum security facility overseas, not here in the United States. That man is pure evil. And when I compare him to Joseph Goebbels, I'm not just saying that because I think it's funny. I'm saying that because I genuinely feel it. You look at that man's face, you look in his eyes, There is nothing there but darkness. And I'm not trying to get all spiritual on everybody here, but there is something genuinely, purely evil about that man. And it does remind me a lot of the photograph, The Eyes of Hate. Some people may know which particular photograph I'm referring to about Joseph Goebbels, some may not. But if you haven't seen it, Google that, The Eyes of Hate. And that was the moment when Goebbels found out that the photographer was in fact Jewish. So look it up and compare that to Stephen Miller, because I think that is what we are dealing with here. Thanks for watching, and if you are not already subscribed to the channel, please do so, and do not forget to like and comment and share widely among your friends.